Hello everyone, it's Daniel from TechMind Factory and welcome to this next video from the series called Implementing Secure Applications with Microsoft Azure. In this video, we are going to talk about secure access to web APIs behind Azure API Management. So let's start. As always, let's start with solution architecture diagram I prepared for this application. So in this specific video, we are going to see how to actually hide and access APIs behind the Azure API Management service. So as we can see on this solution architecture diagram, there is document API, file upload API, and those APIs are hosted with Azure Containers apps. But actually direct access to those APIs is not possible because the access is isolated. Okay, so basically in the Azure cloud we have this Azure virtual network, and like the access to direct access from the internet to those APIs is restricted. So it's not possible to directly call those APIs. So to actually make it possible to call those APIs from the Blazor application we saw in the first video, I use Azure API Management service here. So direct access is forbidden. Everything, all the traffic to those APIs goes through the Azure API Management service. So now you can ask, what is Azure API Management? So Azure API Management, or APIM, is fully managed service that enables organizations to create, manage, secure, and analyze APIs across various environments. Okay, it helps in setting up a gateway to publish APIs to internal and external users. So basically the thing is that we can hide different kinds of APIs behind Azure API Management, and we can provide like a central access to those APIs using Azure API Management. However, this is not enough because in this specific video, I would like to also talk about concepts of Azure API Management, security, and policies. Okay, so I would like to also explain why using Azure API Management in our application architecture can be beneficial. So let's start with policies in Azure API Management. So policies are powerful capability of Azure API Management that allow changing the behavior of the API through configuration. And policies are a collection of statements that are executed sequentially on the request and response of an API. So in this specific scenario, we can define different kinds of policies that will be executed when we call our API. So let's discuss some of those policies that are available in the Azure API Management. And a small disclaimer, like there are many different kinds of policies you can configure. I want to only focus on some set of those policies to explain how to enhance security of our APIs behind Azure API Management. So we can, for instance, format conversion from XML to JSON. Yes, so if the data from our original API is returned in XML, we can transform it to JSON. We can restrict the amount of incoming calls. So basically, we can implement throttling for our APIs behind Azure API Management. We can enforce existence of some of the value for HTTP headers. Okay, so in this case, if there is no specific header presented in the request to our API, this request will be forbidden and will be dropped by Azure API Management. And also JWT access tokens validation. This is very important, and this is what I will show you in this video. So actually even before accessing APIs behind Azure API Management, we can validate access tokens to make sure that they are included in the authorization headers in HTTP requests. Okay, so that's about the theory. I want to show a little bit of practice here. So yeah, let's see it in action. Here is the Azure portal with the resource group where I created all Azure resources used in this solution architecture. One of the resources, as you can see, is Azure API Management. And Azure API Management is used to secure access to those APIs hosted with Azure Container Subs. So as we can see, here is Document API and File Upload API. So now let's open Azure API Management tab here, and let's explain some of those concepts related to policies. So first of all, under products, I have this product called Secure Cloud App. So basically, product in Azure API Management enables you to group different APIs together. Because of the fact that we can group those APIs together, we can apply policies to all of those APIs. So if I select Secure Cloud Application and select APIs, you can see that I have my two APIs included here in this product, like Document API and File Upload API. Perfect. So right now, I would like to apply policies when accessing those APIs for this product. So under policies, as you can see, I can define different kinds of policies. And believe me, like this is just an example. There are many different kinds of policies available in the Microsoft documentation you can apply in Azure API Management. So I can add inbound processing policies, outbound processing policies, or backend policies. In this specific video, I'm focusing on the inbound processing policies. So I want to validate requests that are coming to my Azure API Management instance. So let me open this really quickly, and let's explain what's going on here. So under inbound section, so inbound policies, I define two policies, rate limit policy and jot token validation. Let's start with rate limit policy. As you can see here, I want to implement throttling for my API. So instead of implementing this in the source code, I can apply this policy in the Azure API Management. So here I'm using rate limit policy so in this case, 50 calls are available in 1 minute from specific IP address. So that's why I have this limit by key calls, 50. So 50 calls, renewal period is 60 seconds, so 1 minute actually, and counter key is set to IP address. So from concrete IP address, you can call my API 50 times per 1 minute actually. So simple as that. So it makes my API more secure, more resilient. You cannot flood it with too many requests actually. Also, the second policy, as you can see, is validate jot token. And this policy can be also really helpful because you can validate access token even before a request reaches your target API. So as you can see here, header name is authorization, obviously. Failed validation HTTP code is 401, so unauthorized. And failed validation error message is set to unauthorized. Access token is missing or invalid. So this message will be returned if actually there is something wrong with the authorization header. So as you can see, under the OpenID config URL, I had to provide the well-known endpoint of my Microsoft Entra external ID tenant in this specific scenario. So Azure API Management can grab OpenID configuration, including information about the issuer. And now, as you can see here, under issuers, I have this one issuer. So I allow access tokens that contain issuer value set to this one. So actually access tokens which were issued by my Microsoft Entra external ID tenant. So I will not accept any other access tokens here in any request that is coming to my APIs through Azure API Management. So this is really helpful, as you can see here. So in this case, I'm accepting only access tokens issued by my Microsoft Entra external ID tenant. Great. So in this specific scenario, especially when you have like some legacy APIs and you cannot modify the code, this can be also helpful to make your API more secure. Okay, perfect. So now let me close this actually, and I want to mention two more things. So first of all, under policy fragments, here there is a place where you can centrally manage and use reusable snippets of your policies. Okay, so it's called policy fragments. You can define them there and use them in many different places in Azure API Management. So when it comes to policies, obviously you can apply them globally at the product level, but also if I open APIs tab here, you can see that there is Document API and File Upload API. And if I open Document API under Design tab, I can also set some of those policies. So instead of like applying policy at the global product level, I can apply the policy only to my specific API, to all of the endpoints exposed by this API. Moving forward, I can also apply the policy to one of my endpoints exposed by my API. So I don't have to apply the policy to all of those endpoints. I can apply this policy to specific endpoint. So that's really helpful. And with policies in Azure API Management, you can really enhance the security of your APIs. So it's really helpful. And also, as you probably know, contacting APIs directly in the Azure can be tricky, because if you are hosting those APIs under different URLs, then it becomes tricky from the client application perspective, because if this client application would like to contact all of those APIs, you have to also store different kinds of URLs to those APIs, which can be tricky. By like hiding all those APIs behind the Azure API Management, you can get a simple one URL to access all of those API endpoints. So it's much easier also from the maintenance perspective, actually. So here, as I mentioned, under the Azure API Management tab, you can configure all those policies. You can also grab the URL for Azure API Management, and then you can call your internal APIs through Azure API Management service. That's it for this video. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. In the next video, we are going to talk about how to securely access Azure SQL database using managed identities. So I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.